Good evening. I'd like to call to order the City of Watertown City Council meeting for June 15th, 2020. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, roll call, please.
Okay. Albertson,
Here.
Bueller,
Here.
Hoyer, absent, Helene,
Here.
Lallam,
Here.
Manti, absent, Rademski,
Here.
Roby,
Here.
Billhauer,
Here.
Y.
Present.
Thank you.
Thank you. The first item on the agenda is approval of the consent agenda. Have a motion by Helene and a second by Rademski. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Roll call vote, please, Kristen.
Okay. Albertson,
Aye.
Bueller,
Aye.
Helene,
Aye.
Lallam,
Aye.
Rademski,
Aye.
Roby,
Aye.
Billhauer,
Aye.
Y.
Aye.
Motion carries.
All right. Next item now is public comment, and this is the time reserved for anyone who would like to make a public comment to step forward and do so. Please state your name into the microphone for the record before making your comment. And if your comment is related to an agenda item, please wait until that agenda item is taken up by the City Council. And if you are on by phone or remotely, please state your name and then say request permission to speak. Is there anyone here who would like to speak? Hearing no one, we'll move on. Item 6 is approval of the agenda. And before we do that, I would like to remove item A. And with that, is there a motion for approval? Motion by Billhauer and a second by Helene. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Roll call vote, please, Kristen.
Okay. Albertson,
Aye.
Bueller,
Aye.
Helene,
Aye.
Lallam,
Aye.
Rademski,
Aye.
Roby,
Aye.
Billhauer,
Aye.
Y.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion carries.
All right. Item B is Valley View Second Edition, Annexation and Zoning. And item 1 is approval of resolution number 20-27, annexation of a tract of land contiguous to the City of Watertown, South Dakota, to be known as Valley View Second Edition. I have a motion by Helene and a second by Rademski. I see our urban planner, Brandy Handon, is here. Brandy, will you please tell us about this one?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. And I'll share my screen here. Okay, can everyone see that?
Yes.
Okay, so as the mayor had mentioned, this is the annexation and zoning of Valley View Second Edition. And there will be 2 actions on here, but I can just explain them together on what they're accomplishing with this. So this is the second edition in the Valley View subdivision that is conforming with their preliminary plan. They're doing R1 single family residential zoning, R2 single family attached, and R3 multifamily residential district. The R2 was an addition from the preliminary plan, but that was rezoned previously in the first edition. So it is conforming with what was rezoned. This will be 11.5 acres of land there along 2nd Street Northeast. And I think that's about it.
All right, thank you, Brandy. I noticed you've got a rectangular shape in one of the items, and it doesn't really look that rectangular. On the other side of Grant Drive, is that already in and developed? No.
No, so this area is not included. Right now, the development only goes this far, if you can see that where I'm moving my mouse.
Yes, we can see it. Okay. Thank you. Are there questions, council, about the annexation? Not seeing any questions, so I'll look for action. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Those opposed signify by saying nay. Roll call vote, please, Kristen.
Albertson,
Aye.
Bueller,
Aye.
Pauline, Lallam,
Aye.
Rademski,
Aye.
Roby,
Aye.
Billhauer,
Aye.
Y.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Part 2 is the second reading of ordinance number 20-19, establishing the zoning designation of R1 Single Family Residential District, R2 Single Family Attached Residential District, and R3 Multifamily Residential District for the area of land to be known as the Valley View Second Edition upon annexation. And Brandy has already kind of described the area, but this is the zoning part of it. So I'll look for a motion. Motion by Helene. Second by Vilhauer. And Brandy, do you want to have anything to add on this?
Nope, I just explained them together and I don't have anything to add.
Okay. Then I will go ahead and open up the public hearing and see if anyone is here to speak on this item. If so, please state your name into the microphone. Not hearing one, I will close the public hearing and look for discussion by the council. Any discussion? Questions or comments? This is pretty easy for Brandy, you know. All right, I will look for action. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Roll call vote, please, Kristen.
Albertson,
Aye.
Bueller,
Aye.
Pauline, Lallam,
Aye.
Rademski,
Aye.
Roby,
Aye.
Vilhauer,
Aye.
Y.
Aye.
Motion carries.
All right, thank you. Item C is the second reading of ordinance number 20-20, amending the zoning map of the city of Watertown, South Dakota for a portion of Lot A, Compescadoon Second Subdivision from R1 Single Family Residential District to R3 Multifamily Residential District. I have a motion by Helene and a second by Rademski. And I would like Brandy to tell us about this.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. So as it was stated, this is a rezone from it's currently zoned R1 single family residential, and they are proposing to rezone it to R3 multifamily residential district. This area was preliminary planned. That was approved by the Planning Commission on April 23rd. We would expect that if this is rezoned, that we will see a plat and development agreement come forth, but that'll be after we get construction plans to review. So council can look forward to seeing that, and then that will also memorialize the zoning since there will be a split zoning, then that will memorialize the lot boundaries.
All right, thank you, Brandy. I think I'll go ahead and open up the public hearing at this time. Is there anyone here that would like to speak about this item? If so, please state your name. Hearing no one, I will close the public hearing and entertain council discussion. Councilman Lallam?
Thank you, Mayor. Brandy, on this one here, this is just changing the zoning, so they'll come forward with a kind of a plan and how they're going to put roads in and things of that nature later. Is that correct?
Well, so we've already approved the preliminary plan, and that shows the layout, and I have that pulled up so you guys have an idea. The prelim plan only gets approved by the Plan Commission, and then the plat and development agreement comes to council of their different phases. So this is what he's rezoning right now. So then if this impacts public infrastructure, then that plat will come to council. But this is what was approved by the plan commission for the layout.
Just that square in there, the bottom right square there.
Yep, just lot 1 of block 3.
How are they
Like,
getting
you'll know-
access?
What's that?
How do they get access to that?
They will get access off of golf course road. And that will be in conformance with the engineering design standards. It'll be however many feet is required off of the intersection. And if they are allowed to or whatnot, that's all spelled out in our standards.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? Councilman Roby?
Thank you, Mayor. I recall we discussed this at last meeting. This is a rezone only. They're going to get access from existing roads. The question that comes up, though, and I'll be interested to see when the final plan or the plat get put together, is how they're going to handle water. There's no new roads going in on this, but that whole area, I get a lot of questions about this and comments. It's just about how they're going to handle water. But I'm certainly not opposed to the rezoning, but looking forward to the next step.
Thank you. Anyone else? Don't see anyone else, so I'll look for action. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Roll call vote, please, Kristen.
Albertson,
Aye.
Bueller,
Aye.
Colleen, Lallam,
Aye.
Rademski,
Aye.
Roby,
Aye.
Billhauer,
Aye.
Y.
Aye.
Motion carries.
All right, thank you. Item D is approval of resolution number 20-29, approving the plat of River Ridge Estates 7th edition to the municipality of Watertown in the county of Cottington, South Dakota, and authorization for the mayor to sign the development agreement for the plat of River Ridge Estates 7th edition. A motion by Holene, second by Rademski. And Brandy, will you please tell us about this?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. So this is the plat of River Ridge 7th edition. This is in conformance with the preliminary plan that was approved on August 8th of 2019. This also, for the whole development, will take care of their park dedication requirements. They are dedicating 8.6 acres of parkland, and I can show you guys that area right there, River Ridge Park, Block 2. There will be 17 R1 lots created by this plat. This is the detention outlot that they will improve for their stormwater management. And then that, if it's, improved to city standards, then the city would take that over as being it's a residential development once it's installed and completed. And we do have a development agreement that goes along with this plat, as there are public improvements, infrastructure improvements included. And that's all pretty standard language, except we did have lengthy discussion about the extension of the right-of-way of Cheyenne Lane or the street improvements. And let me get to, actually, it might be easier to explain with just leaving the plat up, sorry. So there's this portion. Right now, Cheyenne Lane is improved to this area. It's extended that far. The plat obviously extends an additional 254 feet. At this time, the developer felt that a street isn't necessary. So the language that we put in the development agreement states that a street would come at a later date, either with the next phase or when the park is developed, that if we would see it necessary to go in, but that it would happen in conjunction with that. And then the sidewalk discussion, that happens with the street. When the street's installed, the sidewalk is as well. The Plan Commission stated that they would like to see, if the street's not going in right now, at least the sidewalk be extended. And so that's where we left it in the development agreement. Obviously, council's decision. But then it's important too, and I think Terry Kelly's on the line, the Park and Rec Department has decided or is hoping to develop River Ridge Park in 2021. So this park, if the park wasn't going to be developed for a long time, you know, it maybe wouldn't be necessary for a street and sidewalk. But since it's going to hopefully be developed next year, a sidewalk may be nice to include, and then the street to leave the language in there that could come with the next phase when it's warranted. But that's kind of where it opens up, completely council decision. But that's just the language that's presented in the development agreement today.
So the BMP development agreement, they don't have to, they're planning to give that pond to the city?
Yep.
Okay, so there's no BMP agreement.
Right.
We're going to own it. Council, do you have any questions? Oh, Adam, go ahead, Councilman Lallam.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I had Mr. Hofteaser reach out to me on that. Had a lengthy discussion about it. They were not at the, they didn't realize they were supposed to be at that meeting. They didn't realize it was on the agenda, and stated that they would prefer not to put that sidewalk in until that park goes in. You know, and I guess I'm in favor of that. Instead of putting a sidewalk in and then hoping the park gets done, maybe we could have that when the park is in the process of being done, that we do sidewalk at that time. Otherwise, who maintains it? If people drive across it, we bring heavy equipment. You know, I don't need to be replacing sidewalk 2 years or a year after it gets put in. So those are the discussions I had. I did go up and look at the property as to where it's going to lay out and things of that nature. Didn't make a lot of sense to complete that road going farther north, and I guess it's more of a northeast type road until they were ready to develop more of that. And I think the sidewalk is one of those, if we're going to put the park in, let's do the sidewalk at that time. Let them put the park in place and get that done, and then do the sidewalk right behind that so that it all has a chance to you know, be done at one time.
All right.
Just my thoughts.
And the Plan Commission was feeling like if they're, you know, this property is coming off the tax roll and will be owned by the city, but there's no access to it. There's no road adjacent to it because the developer is postponing until they put playground equipment. It's still parkland, but there's no way for anybody to get to it. And so that was the reason that the Plan Commission recommended at least putting the sidewalk in. Some of them were, you know, kind of talking about putting the whole street in. Then they can drive up to put the park equipment in. And, you know, it's like, which comes first, the cart or the horse? This road's going to be built this year and next. And the park is in the budget to be installed next year. So are we going to not do the road base this year? And then they'll be ready for the park playground equipment, but the road won't be till 22. The rest of the roads are in 21, 20 and 21, because we go through at least one winter before we pave a road and accept it. So the road gets constructed over 2 seasons. So
What are they doing for a park, Mayor? Sorry not to cut you off. I apologize there.
I don't think the park board has decided yet, but this River Ridge neighborhood has existed since like 1997 without a park.
Yeah.
And there was supposed to be a park. It was right away in that first phase, and it was all approved. And then the developer came back to the city and said, I'd really rather put lots here where the park was going to be. I'll do a park later. And it just kept, I mean, we're on phase 7, and there's still no park. This is a 7th edition. And finally, the park is coming, but the neighborhood has been without a nearby park for a long time.
Can I weigh in on this, please? This is Greg Hofteaser.
Sure. Go ahead, Mr.
Yeah,
Hofteaser.
well, I'm not sure what you just stated is accurate, because I don't understand how someone thinks it was our responsibility to bring this park to a head. Every time we brought a phase forward, I would have thought that would have fell on the city to say, we won't approve this, much like you're doing now, without some sort of a park agreement. How would that fall on us? I don't remember ever going back and saying, I'd like to put lots where this park is at also.
The
But
first, the
I
first
don't think we
edition,
ever went back and said, I don't know if you were privy to conversations 20 or 23 years ago. Maybe you were, but I'm going to disagree with what you just said, Mayor, respectfully, but I don't understand how it was on us to bring this park to a head. That's the city's job.
right. So the city did approve the lots which are adjacent and on the south side of 20th, not 20th. What's the first road that's on the south side of the church? Is that 20th? 20th Avenue?
20th, yeah.
Yes, 20th Avenue North. The very first edition had a park right there. And there, I found this in the record, that those first lots right down there where the cursor is, the very most southeastern portion of the subdivision was approved for a park in its first phase. And then it was approved by the city, and I'm not blaming the developer at all for this. The city did say it's okay for the park not to be here. We'll put it somewhere else later. And I'm not blaming the developer at all for this. It's just been kicked down the
Well,
road
but
for the people that have
Right,
lived there.
But you made it, I mean, my perception of what you had just said was that we kept putting it off and kicking it down the road. The city kicked it down the road, because if it were as simple as saying, I'd like to put lots there, and the city goes, oh, okay, let's do it later, then I'd say the same thing here and we'd be done with this. I mean, we know we've dedicated the park. I think if you asked to put just a sidewalk there, if everybody would have pleased, like Adam did, drive out and look, you're asking to extend a sidewalk into a hay and a bean field. I mean, it makes absolutely no sense that the public has access, the right, but who wants to walk out into a bean field? And when you go to develop that park, an 8.6 acre park, I'm not sure how many people realize how big that is, but you aren't going to go out there with a lawn tractor and develop that park and turn it from beans and alfalfa into grass for a park. That's going to take more than just a month or so to develop. You're going to have to go in there and spray it with Roundup. You're going to have to disc it. You're going to have to seed it, and then it's going to hope it rains. So I guess what I'm getting at is to put a sidewalk there now and then to have to remove snow from it all winter. It just doesn't make sense. Next year, if they develop that park, it's going to be a lot harder for them and for my tenant who's farming it to get that all done with a sidewalk there that you can't drive heavy equipment over. I mean, and that park can't be developed with a lawn tractor.
Okay, Mr. Hofstadter, I apologize if I seem to be blaming you. That wasn't my intention at all. I was kind of advocating for the neighborhood needing a park, and that the city is fully responsible for approving plats. The developer doesn't do that. The city approves the plats, and this is the seventh one, and this is finally getting a park for the people who've lived out there for so many years, and I'm sure some children are now adults. And they never did have a park there. But this is the time. My point is, if we put this in our budget and we haven't approved the budget yet, but I have seen the requests, and there is a plan to put a park in the year 2021. And so will you be coming back next year to do the road when you do the other roads this year? And that's fine. That you have 2 years anyway. The normal agreement gives a developer 2 years to do a subdivision, and that's what this development agreement says. So what I would hate to see is for the neighborhood to not be able to put the park in because there's no access to get the equipment in to put the park in because the road isn't there. So
well, there's you're making it sound like they're going to go stick equipment in there in April. Common sense tells you that there's a lot of work to be done before they're ready to put swing sets and slides or playground equipment there. I mean, they've got to get some heavy equipment in there to disc that up and to spray it and to seed it. I mean, I would guess, and I don't put parks in, that's not what I do, but I would guess you're going to be lucky to be able to put park equipment on grass, not mud, that has been seeded or disc, because you got to hope the grass comes up, and there's all kinds of weed control got to be done for the spring and summer until the grass is mowed 3 or 4 times. I'm going to guess the playground equipment is going to go in, maybe next September. And that grass you certainly don't want to put playground equipment in the middle of a bean field. And it's going to take a year to establish grass enough so that you want people out there enjoying it, not in the mud, but in grass that's been mowed several times. I mean, it takes time to do that. It's not like they're going to take playground equipment and plunk it in there in April, and we need access to that so the kids can go play in the park. I'm willing to put the sidewalk in when that's developed, but to put it in ahead of time, I'm trying to save you. It's going to be easier for the city to develop that park without that sidewalk there. And I don't know, because they're going to have to drive 254 feet all the way around that sidewalk with all the equipment, the spray coops, or whatever they're going to use to develop that park. I'm not sure why they would want to do that. And
No,
then
they-
why
they-
would you
I
want
don't
to
disagree
snow
with
from
that.
254 feet?
No, I don't disagree with you. I think that's correct. I'm just explaining the Plan Commission's discussion. I was listening.
And unfortunately, we weren't told there was a meeting, or we could have been there to have this discussion, and it might be a moot point tonight. But we weren't told there was a meeting, and we didn't get a chance to go there and talk to them about it and explain the things I'm explaining now, unfortunately.
Yeah, okay.
Yes, that was my bad, and I'll own that. It was a last minute deal that we decided to move forward with it, and then I did forget to tell Greg. Yep,
and that we missed an opportunity to attend that meeting, and I don't think we'd even be discussing this now. If anybody that had made that suggestion had gone out and looked at it and seen that it was a bean field and a hay field, to extend a sidewalk 254 feet and then to drive your equipment around it when you develop the park, it just makes no sense. But
It was something thrown up by one of the plan commissioners as an option when another plan commissioner had said, the standard is the roads go in at the time of the plat, and this one's different. The road is delayed by the park. So this is not a standard process, and that was just meant to mitigate that a little bit. But you make a valid point. And I think it's ultimately, the Plan Commission made a recommendation, but it's up to the council. And it's their decision on, do we delay the road and build the sidewalk? Do we not delay the road? Do we do it all in the same, or, delay the road and the sidewalk? The way that
Right.
it's written and proposed is delay the road, but build the sidewalk. That's what's before you. So if you want something different, that will require a modification to the contract that's in front of the council. So,
And the problem I have with this, again, is not being able to attend that planning commission meeting, because I would like to have asked them if any single one of them went out and looked at the site. Because when you look at it on paper, and if you tell the layperson off the street, we have a park here, shouldn't there be a sidewalk? It sounds like a great idea. I would agree with it myself on paper, but if they went out and looked at it and said, this doesn't really make sense here because it's a bean field, and why would you lay a sidewalk into a bean field for the public to access a bean field? And then when we develop it, we didn't have a chance to defend ourselves or to actually save yourselves from the planning committee. I don't think any of them, and I'm not faulting them, but I think before they make decisions, they should get as much information as possible. And I don't think we were able to, A, we were able to provide it, and B, I wonder if any of them went out and drove out to the site like Adam did and looked at it and went, this doesn't make, on paper it makes sense, but you look at this doesn't make sense. And then to remove snow from 254 feet of sidewalk all winter, that doesn't make sense either in a bean field.
I might just add to, this is Brandy, with the Plan Commission, if council decides to change the development agreement that's presented, that's not necessarily going against them because Plan Commission never recommends development agreements. They only recommended the approval of the plat. We bring the development agreements to them as a courtesy, just because they're involved with the preliminary plan. So if council did deviate from what is presented here tonight, you wouldn't be necessarily going against the Plan Commission recommendation because they didn't make one.
Okay,
It was just
council.
a discussion. That's what we gathered from their discussion.
Yeah, thank you. Questions, council?
Mayor, if I could.
Councilman Lallam, go ahead.
Thank you. On this particular one, what I would look at is, Greg, and if you're okay with it, once that park gets in place, putting that sidewalk in after, so that we are not having to run equipment of any kind across it. I don't want to be having to replace, especially at the city's expense, additional concrete simply because we put the concrete in and 3 months later, 6 months later, a year later, we went and did the park. Are you okay with that, Greg?
I have no problem. If they were developing the park as we speak, I'd have no problem laying it this year. But again, if it's going to be a year and you say it's proposed, I mean, maybe it goes in the budget, maybe it doesn't. But until the park is in, and again, it's going to take a while to establish that as a park. It just isn't going to happen in April or May of next year. It's going to take, like I said, it'll take most of the summer to get that sprayed and done properly and have grass growing by September.
Yeah, I guess I'm not going to make it yet because I see there's other hands that want to be raised. But I mean, my recommendation is, and I'm one of those that let's get our ducks in a row. Let's make sure that we have it done. But let's do it smartly and not have to replace it. But I'll let people talk first, and then if we need to make a motion, I can make that motion.
Okay, Councilman Bueller?
Thank you, Mayor. Greg, Bruce Bueller, your old neighbor from Grandview Drive.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, and you probably remember that sidewalk. Well, maybe you don't, but it was just a couple houses down. It was right between my house and my neighbor's house.
Yep.
That actually went
I
to
remember.
Cottage Grove Park.
Yep.
And would that be a consideration? I mean, be more centrally located. People would access from the sidewalks to get to that sidewalk, which I'm not saying build the sidewalk now. I'm just saying have the right of way available to build a sidewalk there, like we had on Grandview Drive. Is that realistic? Brandy, anybody?
What?
Well, and we do have an easement there. He'll actually dedicate the right of way with his next plat, or he will, if it's contemporaneous to the park development and if it's warranted, is how it's stated in the development agreement. But the easement will be there.
Yeah, that's in place the way I understand it.
Okay, and just to, this is how old I am. I was involved with the platting of this property in '97, and I do recall that we did make some drastic changes, especially when we were looking at the bypass extension from the interstate over to Highway 20. And so we, the idea was to start developing from the south to the north, and so it was at the request of the Planning Commission at that time to kind of make a lot of changes. And yeah, this has been dragged through the mud quite a bit, no doubt, over the years. But anyway, that was my question. I just thought it might make sense to make sure we've got property available that if we could have an access, maybe that Lucas Circle area, if that would make sense. I don't know, but it would be something certainly for you guys to think about.
Yeah. There will actually be access on the east and the west if that park narrows down by that holding pond in the northwest corner. So when that road goes out to the north, there'll be access on both sides of the park. But
okay, all right, thank you.
Yep.
So this plat does not include right-of-way adjacent to the park. So when does that happen, Brandy? Is that mentioned in the, okay, I think I see it, in the development agreement under park dedication?
Yep. And I can share my screen again. I also was looking at the language, how we left it. I think how it's presented, as far as the sidewalk language goes, I think that takes care of the sidewalk being installed contemporaneously with the park development.
So it doesn't read the way that the Plan Commission said?
We did change the language. No, where is that? After that meeting, I'd have to see how it ended up being presented to Plan Commission, but right now what's presented to council is all properties intended to be dedicated to the public or for public use, such as parks and stormwater detention lots, shall have sidewalk installed by the developer. Sidewalk should be installed within the ingress and egress easement adjacent to River Ridge Park, contemporaneous to park development.
Okay, that's not what the Plan Commission said. That's what Greg is wanting. Right?
Yes, so they want Plan Commission, but they expected that we didn't know at that time when the park was going to be developed. So now that we know from Terry Kelly that they're hoping for 2021, then it still would really fall in within this development agreement when the sidewalk would go in. But ultimately, it'll be, this can change, but the Plan Commission doesn't recommend the development agreement. So this would read to what Greg is proposing.
Okay. Councilman Bueller, do you still have a question? Councilman Roby?
Sounds to me like we're all pretty much in agreement. We agree there's going to be a park, and we agree there's going to be a sidewalk to the park. It's not a matter of if, it's just a timing issue.
Right.
Is that what we're after?
That's true.
All right. So Brandy, if you allow me to pose a question to you, first of all, I take great weight in what the Planning Commission says. But Brandy, what I'm hearing from you is that we're kind of all on the same page, and did they make a specific recommendation on the timing, or where did the Planning Commission stand on this?
So they were wondering when the park was going to be developed. We weren't clear on that. We had initially thought 2022, but then in talking with TK that they were hoping to move it up to 2021. So then they just thought, since we're not doing the street, that just a sidewalk. But they really and obviously Greg didn't have the opportunity to discuss this with them. So that's where, I mean, and who knows where that discussion would have went then anyway.
Did that answer your question?
Well, we can complicate the issue. It's an issue basically of timing. That's it.
Yes.
Yes.
Councilman Albertson?
Thanks, Mayor. Just because Greg is not disputing whether or not to put the sidewalk and road in, I believe that I would agree with what he's asking for in this case. So maybe it's what everybody is asking for also. So I would agree with that.
Yep, okay. Councilman Lallam?
Thank you, Mayor. I guess I'd make the recommendation that, once the park is under construction and basically to the point where they're ready to essentially plant and grass and do the, whether it's playground equipment or whatever it may be, that they'd be allowed to put that not driveway, but sidewalk in after that. So I don't know if that needs to be in a motion.
No.
I don't think so. I think that's how it reads.
Yeah, our development
That's
agreement
how
we
it
got
reads as
ahead of,
this.
or before us already says it that way.
Yeah,
Yeah,
right.
so I think we're good to go.
Yeah,
Oh, so I'd call the question then.
yeah.
I'll second that.
All right. We have a called question by Councilman Lallam and seconded by Vilhauer. And a call for vote. All in favor signify by saying aye. Roll call vote, please.
Albertson,
I
Bueller,
Aye.
Pauline, Lallam,
All right.
Radomski,
Aye.
Roby,
Aye.
Vilhauer,
Aye.
Y.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Okay. and-
Kristen Hoyer also says aye to that.
Oh, we have
Oh, you're here?
Councilman Hoyer. Welcome. For the record, Councilman Hoyer.
Okay. And I have you marked.
Okay, we do have a motion by Holene and a second by Rademski to approve the resolution and to authorization to sign the development agreement. Is there any further discussion on that? Then we'll go ahead and take action on that as well. And all those in favor signify by saying aye. Roll call vote, please, Kristen.
Albertson,
Aye.
Bueller,
Aye.
Hoyer,
Aye.
Colleen, Lallam,
Aye.
Rademski,
Aye.
Roby,
Aye.
Billhauer,
Aye.
Y.
Aye.
Motion carries.
All right, thank you. And I have been getting lots of questions about when the park is coming for this neighborhood. I think they'll be very happy to hear that it's coming soon. Item E is the second reading of ordinance number 20-21 to supplement the 2020 budget for various departments and projects. Motion by Helene. Second. Second by Vilhauer. Kristen, will you please explain this for us?
Thank you, Mayor. Before you is actually the second reading. I did go over each of the items during the first reading, but I can run through them. All of these have actually been approved prior to the budget supplement, except for the urban renewal supplement. Otherwise, everything kind of was approved prior. If there's any specific questions, I can try to answer those questions.
All right, thank you. Any questions? Councilman Albertson's hand is up. Do you have a question? Now the hand is down.
No, sorry.
That's all right. Anyone else? No questions. All right, we'll look for action then. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Those opposed signify by saying nay. Motion. Kristen, roll call vote, please.
Okay, Albertson,
Aye.
Bueller,
Aye.
Hoyer,
Aye.
Colleen, Lallam,
Aye.
Rademski,
Aye.
Roby,
Aye.
Billhauer,
Aye.
Y.
Aye.
Motion carries.
All right, thank you. Item F is the first reading of ordinance number 20-23 to supplement the 2020 capital projects fund budget. And there's no action tonight. It's just the first reading. And Kristen, will you please explain it to everyone?
Thank you, Mayor. As the mayor stated, this is actually the first reading of another budget supplement. It's a little bit different. What this is this budget supplement is to account for the remaining sales tax revenue bond dollars that we're going to spend in 2019 and reimburse Fund 212 in 2020. This does allow the city to meet the requirement of spending all bond proceeds, and it also will help when we begin our refunding process. I think that's been talked about where we had some remaining bond dollars that needed to be spent. So to meet this requirement, we will be spending them on the listed projects and refunding Fund 212. If there's any questions, I can answer them.
Okay, Councilman Vilhauer?
I have a question and a comment. First of all, Chris, and I sent you an email questioning this. We had always heard about $3 million left out of our bond proceeds. This supplement is for 1.94 million. Do you want to explain the difference?
Yep, a little bit that had to do with it was we did spend a little bit more in 2019, not a lot, towards the ice arena. And then I was also able to take away the cost of issuance for the bonds. So that lowered the spending that we needed to do.
Okay, thank you, Kristen. Now the comment, just to clarify that this in no way takes those dollars away from the ice arena project. We haven't given up on that project, just put it on hold for the time being. So this does not take dollars away from that because when that time does come, we would make a transfer back the other way to restore those dollars, correct?
That is correct. What this does is this allows for us to meet that requirement. With the current situation of COVID and having that 2020 timeline, this allows us to meet the requirement that was set forth to spend the dollars in a certain time frame. And it also will help. Earlier this year, I had also came before the council with permission to refund some of these. And one of the requirements also is that the bond dollars have already been spent before you can refund. So this will help with that process as well. But you are correct, later on in the year, as we get closer, I will bring forward another supplement to essentially transfer the money back to Fund 504.
Okay, thanks, Kristen.
All right.
Yep.
Thank you. And I see Councilman Lallam's hand is up. Councilman?
Yep. Hey, thank you, Kristen. On this one, we're on a timing thing. When did that money have to be spent by?
I know they were pushing, I don't think the cutoff was quite October of 2020, but that was my comfort level. And with the refunding, we potentially will be refunding in September of 2020. So, and COVID kind of happened and it didn't look like we were going to have any more expenditures here in 2020 that we could offset with. So this was kind of the decision that I made to meet that requirement and still be able to move forward with the refunding.
Now, you say refunding, but all of us normal people would call it refinancing the loan?
Yes, but yes, it's refunding, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Finance officer speak. Any other questions for Kristen? All right, I don't see any, so we'll move on to item G, which is the review of the continued necessity of resolution number 20-15, declaring an emergency concerning the pandemic outbreak of the novel coronavirus, COVID-19, and providing for responsive measures related to the operations of the city and the protection of public health. And there isn't necessarily action unless the council would want to take action. This is the resolution which closes the city buildings, and we've been gradually opening them up little by little. As it stands, City Hall is closed to the public except by appointment, and we have members of the community in the council chambers right now. People are still able to come to meetings if they want to in person. Some of the council members are participating remotely and some are here. The City Hall is doing everything that City Hall does when it's open, even though it's technically closed to the public. So there wouldn't be a change in the level of service to open City Hall. The library, on the other hand, is closed to the public. They do curbside delivery of books, but they aren't allowing browsing at this time. And that's a little bit different situation. And so the library board hasn't made a recommendation to open yet, but they are looking at a reopening plan. So with that, let you go ahead and if anyone has any questions or comments, see
Mayor?
Councilman Vilhauer.
What other city-operated buildings does this, are also currently shuttered?
We still have the Park and Rec facility is closed, but they do allow people, much like City Hall, the police station, much like City Hall, although they always have had protection measures. They weren't for COVID, but they work for COVID. So there's nothing really that they're not able to do right now. The fire station doesn't get a lot of public access to it. And the street, the same thing, the street division. They're not technically open, but there's really not a problem, and people are able to get in if they need to. So it's really no functional reason to change the way we're doing things. We could, have to move backwards if we open too soon, and then we're wanting to close back down. But really, I'm not getting any complaints whatsoever about City Hall being closed. I have received some complaints about people wanting to get into the library and browse around like normal. But, yes, go ahead.
Just a comment, I agree completely as far as City Hall business being done through all this with the way things are currently. By the same token, I am concerned about the public perception out there of the City Hall being closed down as it is. I realize the county courthouse does totally different business than we do, but they've been open for a couple of weeks now. So I would like to see us get you would present it to us, a phasing in plan for reopening the facilities. I would like to see us adopt something along those lines with a timetable in the not too distant future for reopening of the city hall and the library.
Okay. One thing to consider, I know that the county did hire somebody, an extra staff person, to monitor how many people are in.
Right, right.
And we really don't have that in our budget. We could do that too, to limit the number of people and basically have a gatekeeper.
Well, I really don't think that would be necessary because, again, we do such different operations. We know that from the public, but the public does not public's not aware of that, but I don't think it'd be necessary for us to be county heads as closely as a county would need to be. But I would definitely like to see us have a timetable for reopening, and make that in the relatively near future.
Okay.
So with that, I guess I don't know where to go with the conversation tonight.
Councilman Lallam, you have your hand up. Did you want to add to that conversation?
Yes, I do. To Glenn's point, I think we're in the same boat. I mean, you had sent out, I think the library you guys had kind of the same plan as far as a implementation of a, in phases type deal. To Glenn's point, I'd like to see that move forward here, maybe around the 1st of July, and leave that kind of in your hands, and maybe to the park, or not the park, the library board's hands as far as to what level we go. I don't know if that requires us to vote on that or to have you come out with your implementation, but I'd like to see the same thing.
Okay.
And I don't know if you're willing to do that yet or not. That's, I think you as the CEO of the community, I think you have that right to say this is what we're thinking of doing, and
Right. And
the people in City Hall, probably better than any of us do. As far as what I know they're doing their jobs. I have no concern about that, but let's see if we can get stuff opening as well.
right. And we can't stay closed forever. Definitely realize that. But we'd only be doing this for the image. There won't
Yeah.
be any change in the function. We're already performing every function. There isn't any function we're not performing. We do have limited staff, so if one of our employees contracts COVID as a result of a customer coming in, I mean, that could wipe out a department pretty quickly, just because we are a pretty small staff. And, I've talked about what would we do? We don't want that to happen. But it's up to the council, I guess. If you want to set a date to tell us to open, then we'll do that. I'm not feeling the need to do that at this point, but it's really in your hands with the resolution. Councilman Adamski?
Do we still have a number of staff members still working remotely from home?
Yes, we do. And it's, it varies from time to time. I think that our finance officer is in her office, but she's not in here with us, and it's functioning just fine. The city attorney is at home, and he worked from home today, but that you wouldn't know that. It was, we probably wouldn't change. He might sit in his office and be on Teams rather than sitting at his home and being on Teams. There are just a few people that are doing that. It isn't most or all, we're in the construction season now, so folks are out on jobs, and I think we're still accommodating that though. And I would like to continue to allow that because I think it keeps our staff safe. We haven't had any spread. We did have one case of COVID. Nobody else got it. And that was because of the protections that we have in place. So I'm glad that we have that.
Mayor, if I could.
Councilman Lallam?
Thank you. One of the things I'd recommend if we do open that is we take someone from a department and have them, like for a week at a time, they're working from home, so that we do have, essentially a contingency if someone would happen to get it in that department, and that they could rotate through. I know the county did that in some of their offices, that they had one person out for a week working from home, and back in so that they, if there would be a chance that someone would catch COVID, they'd be able to still operate the departments. So that's something we could definitely look at doing as well.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of a more of an advanced security for the people that are working there, that they wouldn't lose an entire department.
Sure. Yep. Our attorney department is one person, but
Yeah, yeah. He's
Councilman
going to have to
Vilhar?
work in a different part.
Mayor, maybe it's more appropriately addressed to Matt. The mayor's got the authority under our resolution to make that decision when to do something that resolution entails, correct?
I'm not sure exactly what
Well,
you're
I mean,
asking.
let's say that we don't take any definitive action tonight relative to City Hall and the library. Does the mayor have the authority to, my concern is we don't meet for 3 weeks now, barring a special meeting. My concern is we don't do anything for 3 weeks. 3 weeks from now, we sit down, we have the same conversation, all of a sudden, we decide, okay, put it off 2-3 more weeks, all of a sudden we're, mid to late July. I guess I'd like to see us get some timetable in motion if we don't feel comfortable with with something that we put out. Can the mayor make that decision herself? Let's say that she decides July 1st to reopen, or do we have to make that decision for her or for us?
Well, because we put this in this resolution that the council's been approving as we've gone on here, there would need to be an amendment to the resolution to give that authority. Okay. In other instances, we've basically accepted certain buildings, giving the authority to the respective departments that control those buildings. So, for example, when we took the park buildings out of the ordinance, that basically gave the authority to the park board to make the decisions on those buildings. So if the answer today, or if the will of the council today is to give the mayor the authority as to when to open City Hall, you'd want to remove City Hall from the resolution.
Or add it to the list of exceptions to the closed building, because the resolution closes the buildings, except for, we've been listing the ones that we've accepted.
I guess, I meant remove from being affected by the resolution.
Yes.
So accepting it.
Yes,
right?
accept it. And I do have the ability to go the other direction if I see the need to suspend applicable clauses of the city's personnel policy or enact other measures as necessary to protect the health and well-being, which is kind of the opposite. So I could, like, if you opened it, I could close it again.
Right. This is one of those, this is such an odd, such a kind of a surreal time. There's no rule that says who has the authority to lock the front door at City Hall. We don't have an ordinance that says that's City Council's call, or that's the mayor's call. I think as the executive of the city, without any other rule affecting it, it's probably the mayor's call as to whether or not the front door is unlocked or locked.
I guess I would like, you've heard Adam's and my comments about our thoughts about this. I guess I'd like a little more feedback from some of our other colleagues up here as far as, are we good to go as is and just let it ride for a while? Or I guess I'd like to know what some other thoughts are about this.
Councilman Rudemsky?
My thought is I think we need to get City Hall open back up as soon as possible and get the folks back to work so they can work and function as a team and a unit.
They are working, though, to be clear. People are working. They're alternate. And the phase 2 does still allow for some alternate working situations, social distancing, limiting gathering sizes. Yep. Councilman Roby?
Well, Mayor, you're on the response team that meets all the time on this, and a unified command team, I guess I should say. At this point, I think, there's been an abundance of caution. I actually am okay if the mayor decides in 2 weeks she wants to open City Hall to a certain extent. At this point, I'm okay with that, so.
I think, I've been asking the department heads how they feel. And I personally, I have been out and about. I've had a coffee with the mayor gathering, invited people to come. People came, I wore a mask, they wore a mask. I am encouraged hearing that the hairdressers that came to work sick with COVID wore masks, and all of their clients wore masks. Even though they were publicly shamed across the nation and 150 people were identified as exposed, not a single one after 3 weeks came down with COVID. So the masks work, but asking the employees to wear a mask all day and interact face-to-face with the public, I'll be honest, it causes quite a bit of trepidation with people who are still pretty worried about it, people who have health situations. I personally told several people I didn't want them coming even to work with their coworkers because of health conditions that I was aware of. I want to protect the employees as well. And if they're not comfortable, that makes me feel uncomfortable. I'm not getting the sense that they're ready. And that's my only concern. I'm ready, myself personally, but if someone were to become sick and have an issue with it, that's on me. Councilman Roby?
Glenn makes a good point. We don't meet for 3 more weeks. So again, if you're working with the department heads, getting their input, but there's an office or two, or all of them, or City Hall that you guys have decided, well, we're pretty comfortable, then I'd say open up. I wouldn't wait for the council meeting. It's my opinion.
Okay. Or, the council can say to open up when the mayor's ready. And then if I want that before the next council meeting, I can go ahead and do that.
Well, I'll just weigh in sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, Reed, but, you're our CEO, and you're in a better position than any of us to know the situation with your staff. Are you okay if we were to give you the authority to use your discretion as far as when to open up, or do you want more guidance from us?
No, I think discretion would be good, and I'm fine with that. I probably wouldn't do it tomorrow. We've installed the screens, and we've got thermometers, and we've got forms for people to fill out every day when they come to work that they've checked their temperature and they're not feeling sick. I feel pretty comfortable about all of that. It's just the thing that makes me hesitate is the fear I see in the employees who have fragile loved ones, people that they live with, people that they associate with. Are we putting them at risk? But it's, I could see it's been a long time. Our community is prepared to handle COVID. And if we get it in City Hall, we have a way to isolate people, and probably it wouldn't shut us down. I think we could continue. We've done it already once, so it's probably just fine. Councilman Holeen?
Thank you, Mayor. I think it is the mayor's decision as to when to open City Hall. I would be okay granting you that power to open when you see fit. I would recommend, personally, if it were my decision, I would open City Hall on a limited basis so that the public can come in and visit, but also allowing you some flexibility to work with department heads to not necessarily have every city employee here all the time. Allow some flexibility for those with fragile loved ones or situations to work from home as long as they're still doing their work.
Yes, thank you. I appreciate that very much, Councilman Holeen. And I would like to ask the council, have you received complaints from your constituents about City Hall that they haven't been able to get things done because City Hall was closed?
Very few.
But you have got some?
2.
And what weren't they able to do? What kind of work?
It was more just that they felt that City Hall should be open.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I understand. Okay, I see lots of hands. Councilman Bueller.
I just sitting way over here, I thought you maybe forgot about me. No, I totally agree. I think that we should leave that to the mayor's discretion. Again, somebody brought up the Unified Command Team. You're working with that all the time, and you've got way more information than we do, and I have no problem with leaving that.
I'll tell you this,
to
the
your
hospital
discretion.
isn't open. You are now, they're talking about maybe letting one visitor per patient in. You have to say bye to your child when they're in the hospital. And that's the medical community feeling like they're at risk. Of course, they're dealing with sick people, so it is different. But sick people do come to do their business sometimes. Councilman Roby?
I'm just going to make a motion that we give authority to the mayor, give discretion to the mayor, that if she, in this case, deems fit to open up department or departments based upon input from department heads, that you have the authority to do that.
Thank you. We have a motion by Roby. Second. And a second by Holeen. And there's still quite a few hands up. Councilman Y?
I would just say, Mayor, I give you that authority. I'd like to see you have that authority, and I have not had anyone, to my recollection, that was unhappy that City Hall was not open.
Thank you. Councilman Albertson?
I'm agreeing with that the discretion should go with the mayor. I haven't had anybody. I've had a few questions about the library, but I also understand it's a whole different ballgame there too. So, yeah, I'd say go with the mayor.
Thank you. And Councilman Albertson, being the liaison to the library board, has the board reviewed the library's policy or approved it, or to what degree have you reviewed that?
We've spent some time with that with Dee Dee, and I'm sure this next meeting, if they haven't opened, she will probably be ready to open at that point, because she's talked about the 3 steps of how you would do that, the 3 different phases. And so she's put some time into it, and, they're all nervous because large numbers, but if they use the CDC stuff, I think they'll be okay too.
Right, thank you. Councilman Lallam?
Thank you, Mayor. That was actually going to be part of my question to Councilman Roby. What is your recommendation? Or are you not making a recommendation for the library?
I give full discretion to the mayor on all departments and working with those department heads.
Okay, thank you. Matt?
Thanks, Mayor. I was just going to offer up some potential solutions as it relates to the resolution. It sounds like the 4 buildings that come to mind here are City Hall, the library, the police and fire department. One option the council could entertain is just striking the entire city closure clause from the resolution. And therefore it would fall onto the mayor working with the park board, or excuse me, the mayor working with the library board and the police and fire department and the city hall staff as to the appropriateness of opening the buildings and the timing of that. Taking it one step further, I guess, and not to divert the conversation, but the whole resolution, I guess I would ask the council to make sure that they review this occasionally. I know we consider it every week, that you still want that resolution to continue in full force and effect.
Any comments? Councilman Vilhauer?
I guess my comment is I'd like to, approve what Councilman Roby's motion was, and I'd also then like to have us, strike or, revoke the continuing resolution. We can always put it something back in place if it goes the other way.
But this is already, if you leave it here and we get a huge spike, I have the ability to do stuff that I don't if you take the resolution away. I can enact emergency measures with the resolution in place.
I'm just trying to simplify things. Otherwise, we're going to have to amend the resolution to incorporate what Don is suggesting, correct?
True.
I'm just thinking it'd be easier, pass one motion and then revoke the resolution, but I guess whatever works, I think we'll get the same place.
I think you could do what Don is suggesting by simply striking the clause in the resolution related to buildings. If that's the intention.
But leave the resolution in place for its other powers.
Correct.
And that's kind of what the motion is, to give the mayor, if you take it away, that whole paragraph, which says that city-operated buildings except blah, 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 remain closed, they won't be closed unless I close them. So I can just keep them the way they are, which is it's quasi-open. And that would be in conformance with the resolution, right?
Correct. So if you struck the building clause in the resolution, then buildings are just by default open, normal operating hours. But because of your powers in the resolution to take actions under this emergency situation, you could leave City Hall closed as you deem appropriate, or the park, work with the library board as far as how that's going to work with reopening the library. And then I think police and fire, I think they took action independently of us prior to us even enacting the resolution, if I recall. But you'd want to work with them as well as to what's being done in the lobbies of those buildings.
Right. And I did participate in another mayor's conference call today, and it's really mixed across the state what the various cities are doing. Some libraries are open, but their city hall's closed. Some have the opposite. Some are just like us. Some never closed anything. It's really mixed. It's not uniforms, case by case, I guess. So we're not weird or acting in way differently than anyone else. All right, so motion on the table is in essence, or do you think it needs to be modified, Matt? To just strike that provision?
As it is now, I would just add, as the motion originally stands, I would add a clause to the resolution that specifically just gives you authority to make the decision on City Hall and leave everything else the same. And that would be what I would do as it is right now if the motion as it stands passes. But I guess I was just trying to offer up a way to potentially simplify the situation and just strike the building clause, but you wouldn't have to.
Okay. You want to amend the motion or leave it?
I will, but I got a 50-50 on that, Matt. I'm not sure which way you recommended we go. So I'd like to amend my motion. We'll strike the building language out of the current resolution. The mayor will have authority to open building or buildings as she deems appropriate.
All right, and the second, I think it was, you good with that? Yes. So we have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? All right, I'll take action then. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Those opposed signify by saying nay. Kristen, roll call vote, please.
Albertson?
Aye.
Bueller?
Aye.
Hoyer?
Aye.
Moline? Aye. Lallam?
Aye.
Rademski?
Aye.
Roby?
Aye.
Vilhauer?
Aye.
Why?
Aye.
Motion carries.
All right, thank you. Next item on the agenda is old business. Is there some old business? Councilman Roby.
I know Heath is gone, but you might have an update for us on Cherry Creek?
Oh, Cherry Creek. Our Assistant City Engineer, Justin Peterson, is on the line, and he can give you an update on that. Justin?
Thank you, Mayor. The city hasn't issued a nationwide permit from the Corps of Engineers, and we're currently looking at moving the project forward. It'll be kind of a grading project along Cherry Creek. that answer your question?
Councilman Roby?
Do you have any timing for us when we can expect that work to begin?
It would have to go out to quote, so I'd guess that the work would probably start probably late summer, early fall, if I had to guess.
How close are we to being able to put it out for quotes or a bid? Would we need to do bids? Or is it small enough we can do quotes?
It'd be a quote. I think it would be a quote anyway. I'd say probably within the next month.
Okay. Councilman Roby?
If I had to guess.
Thanks for that update. I would just add that, you know, this one's been kicked down the road quite a bit. I really don't want this one to go into next year. So I hope I'm going to push that we keep this one on track this year. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Is there any other old business? Any new business? Councilman Rademski.
I think we just need to remind the folks out there that what our ordinance is for how long your grass can be before you might be cited from the code enforcement officer. And then also it was brought to my attention that there's some yards in town that people have built new houses and it's going on 2 or 3 years that do not have lawns put in yet. If we could send those folks a letter and remind them they need to get their lawns put in.
You betcha.
Thank you.
People love getting letters like that. Got to be done sometimes. It's hard to be the neighbor to the person that has the dirt for a yard. Is there any other new business? Councilman Vilhauer?
I wouldn't call it new business, but I know we received some complaints from some residents or constituents concerning the ban that was downtown here recently. You know, it's been an ongoing discussion with this group. We gave that authority to the police department and building services, but there were some complaints again, so it's something we're going to have to continue to monitor going forward. Especially this one person particularly raised a good point that with downtown development and more residents living downtown, that's only going to make that issue probably worse going forward.
Well, I guess it's how you see it. Beauty's in the eye of the beholder. I had kind of an interesting discussion about this at Coffee with the Mayor. Some pro, some con. So people always say there's nothing to do here. I would disagree with that. We have lots of things to do here. So yeah, I think it's something that should be discussed though. And one of the comments that I got was, I think something we should try, turn the showmobile so that the band plays into shooters, not into the open air. And then maybe those sound waves won't travel so far. Councilman Roby?
I also picked up one of those, Glenn, and the comment was Thursday Night Live seems to work fine, but when they have the street dance, it doesn't. It's just, obviously, it's a different event, but I just wanted to add that to the discussion.
Right, thank you. Other new business? Any liaison member reports? Any announcements? Okay, not seeing any. Well, we do have a reason to go into executive session this evening in order to discuss and consult with legal counsel on matters of confidential financial information for economic development purposes in pursuant to SDCL 1-25-2. So I'll need a motion to do that. So moved. Have a motion by Holine and a second by Vilhauer. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Kristen?
Aye.
Albertson? Albertson?
He maybe stepped away.
Euler?
Aye.
Hoyer?
Aye.
Pauline? Aye. Lallam?
Aye.
Rademski?
Aye.
Roby?
Aye.
Vilhauer?
Aye.
Why?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Albertson, aye.
Oh, thank you, Dan. All right, we are in executive session, so please close out of the current meeting on Teams and log into the executive session meeting.